Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. The third temple in Jerusalem. Now, this is Daniel 9, and we're going to start reading in verse 24, heading up to verse 27. Verse 24 says, 70 weeks. So this is the 70 weeks prophecy. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression. So to finish the basically the payment for what the Jews have done, to the transgression, the sins of the Jews, to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for the iniquity of the Jews, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. So there's a certain punishment that the Jews get for what they did for rejecting the Messiah. And to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. So there's a period of time before which everlasting righteousness comes. And to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem, this happened in 70 AD, unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. So unto the Messiah, the Prince, the street shall be rebuilt, and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. So this is speaking of the death of Jesus Christ, I believe, on the cross. He is cut off, but not for himself. Who is he cut off for? For the sins of mankind, for you and I. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. So the question is, who is the prince? And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. Verse 27, and he shall confirm covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he, lowercase h, shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Now, the current understanding of this, the kind of general consensus, is that the people of the prince to come is speaking of the people of the Antichrist, and the destruction of the city and the confirming of the covenant, again, being the Antichrist. Now, you can easily read these verses in a different direction there, because Messiah the Prince is referred to as, Prince, Messiah the Prince. And the people of the Prince, is that the Messiah, shall come, shall destroy the city and sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And he, Messiah the Prince, again referring to the Prince, going through, shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. So some people say this is, Jesus in there. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause a sacrifice to cease, and the oblations, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. Now this, again, sounds like something that Jesus would do. For the overspreading of abominations. Now, Satan doesn't care about overspreading of abominations. So God, or Jesus rather, causes the sacrifice and oblation to cease, basically, and it has been ceased, since 2,000 years ago, because the second temple was destroyed. The third temple they're looking to build, but Jesus Christ made them cease the sacrifice and the oblation. Because of the sin of the Jews, so as punishment. So a secondary way to look at it, even until the consummation, until everything's consummated. That's going to be the case. The sacrifice is ceased, and that determined shall be poured out upon the desolate. So what God deems appropriate in the wrath of God. That once that is done, that's the consummation of the pouring out there. So a different way to look at it, and again, most of us in this day and age believe this to switch from, what we believe as Jesus Christ to over to the Antichrist. And there's good argument there to say, well, does that refer to the Antichrist, or is it speaking of Messiah the Prince? And you can let me know in the comments, and this is obviously reading specific verses from Daniel chapter 9. But as it relates to that, and if you agree that the prince of the people that shall come and the covenant, if you agree that that is indeed the Antichrist, then you would expect in the last days, maybe at the beginning of the 7-year period, that last week, that the temple, the third temple, is rebuilt again and sacrifices are starting. And if that is the case, indeed that's what we see, which could be a very interesting time indicator as to how close we are to the 7-year period. And we look at these things like the red heifer and the rehearsal of the Levites and the priests and what the Temple Institute is doing. And we look at that and we say, you know what, they're moving towards something, and absolutely they are. This is a new one, October 14th. 600 Levites rehearse for third temple service. So on Thursday night, 600 Jewish men for the tribe of Levi held a rehearsal on the steps leading up to the Temple Mount to prepare to play their role in providing the musical accompaniment for third temple service. So when you think of multi-level prophecies, rather, that maybe say more than one thing at once, that's what we could be seeing. The idea is to bring back the singing of the Levites and renew it, says Weiss. Weiss is the guy that put this together, and he put together this school. The school for this was opened in 2010. The school began to spread the word in order to gather a group of Levites. In the Bible, the tribe of Levi included Moses and Aaron. Kohanim priests are the descendants of Aaron, and his descendants became a subset of the tribe of Levi. The other members of the tribe were chosen by God to forfeit their portions of land in Israel and to serve in the temple. The Levites performed various functions in the temple, including guarding as well as serving musical needs. And he says, we wanted to make a choir, but then the corona came, the pandemic. The event on Thursday was the first post-pandemic rehearsal for the Levites, bringing 600 men to practice a medley for the Hallel service composed of Psalms 113 and 118. I believe, said Weiss, the third temple is about unity and ingathering of the exiles. So the music itself is from the east and the west, from all types of congregations. Also the instruments. We have piano and drums and cello. But we also have a kanun, a type of Middle Eastern zither, and an oud, a Middle Eastern lute. These are representative of the instruments that were in the temple. There was a brass section, wind instruments, stringed instruments, and percussion in the temple. So interesting article here about, again, one more step towards the third temple, which the Jews themselves are working towards. In the days that the temple stood in Jerusalem, the Levites sang on the 15 steps. This is the outer court here, or the courtyard, rather, the courtyard, correspond to the 15 songs of ascent in Psalm 15 that led from Ezrat Nashim, court of women, to Ezrat Yisrael, the court of the Israelites. The Mishnah states that there were never less than 12 Levites standing on the platform, but their number could be increased indefinitely. While ordinarily no minor was permitted to enter the Azara, the courtyard, to take part in the service, the young Levites were permitted to join in the singing when the adult Levites stood up to sing. So, Levites practicing, choir practice effectively for singing in the third temple. But that's not all. There is more. This is again from Israel 365. Let's put it in reader mode here. So this is the Feast of Tabernacles returns to Jerusalem, manifesting Zechariah's Prophecy. After a 2-year pandemic hiatus, the International Christian Assembly is once again hosting its annual Feast of Tabernacles gathering in Israel. Now we look at the practicing of the Feast of Tabernacles and all the various feasts there. Let me see if I can... Where's my detail on the feasts? Let me pull this up here. Here it is. Keynote. That's not the right keynote. There we go. Oh, I need to get rid of that. There we go. So here's the 7 Jewish feasts. Tabernacles is the final one of the 7, and we agree, we believe that Jesus will fulfill all the feasts. He fulfilled the first 4. The last 3 are to be fulfilled. So the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles. Feast of Trumpets is, we believe, the rapture. And then the second coming of the Day of Atonement. I believe that the rapture happens in the last 3.5 years of the 7-year period. And we'll see how that turns out. Nobody knows exactly. I think we all have some part of our eschatology wrong. But the Day of Atonement and the second coming, and then Tabernacles happens in the millennium, where we tabernacle with Jesus Christ for the millennial reign of Christ. And so these are all basically, these happen all in a short period of time, at the switchover, just before the wrath of God, I believe. So just before the wrath, the rapture happens, and then the second coming happens, and of course the Day of Atonement and the wrath of God falls. And so the question that's always open is, when does the rapture happen? At the beginning of the 7-year period, at the midpoint? I think we all agree it happens before the wrath, but then you need to define, well, where does the wrath actually happen? Regardless, so this is what we're talking about, the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is what happened here, a gathering in Jerusalem. It says, Rabbi Tuli Weiss, head of Israel 365, attended the event in Jerusalem and saw its prophetic potential. It's inspiring to see thousands of Christians from so many nations who have ascended to Jerusalem to celebrate Sukkoth. It felt like a dress rehearsal for Zechariah's prophecy. I look forward to its actual manifestation, when there will be even more people and more nations getting with God's program. So the Feast of Tabernacles, in practice as well, dress rehearsals for pretty much every part of the festivals, the third temple, the return of the Lord. There's rehearsals for everything. Isn't it interesting that all these things are happening at this time? And really, if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, so with the red heifer things, all the implements that the Temple Institute has been putting together, all these things together, it makes you think, boy, they know something. And I think people around the world know something is happening. You look at fuel prices, food prices, the specter of economic collapse, the specter of nuclear Armageddon, nuclear war, which I think the Antichrist will come in and quickly create a peace deal before we get that far. But you look at all these things and you say, you know what, something's happening in this world. The curtain's starting to close on this 6,000 years of man. And the end, the last days, the end of time is coming quickly. And they're getting ready for it. They're practicing in Israel for this. And they're getting ready for the third temple. They're practicing because they want to reinstate those sacrifices, because they never did recognize Jesus Christ as their Messiah. So to pay for their sins, they feel like they need to sacrifice still, like they did before Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And this is all what's going to happen in the last days. When the Antichrist comes, he's going to allow them to build their third temple. And they're going to worship him as God. And then he will sit on the throne in the third temple as God. And that's what causes the abomination of desolation, spoken of in the Word. And that's God's red line, when Satan sits himself in the third temple, which is dedicated to God, sits on God's throne, on this planet, if you will. That's God's red line. That's where Jesus comes back and the wrath of God falls, and he addresses things once and for all. And just prior to that wrath, that's when we get taken out, when we get raptured out, because we are not going to be here for the wrath of God, because we're saved through Jesus Christ. But the Jews will live through that, those who are not saved in Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching, folks. The time is short. We don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I don't know exactly what's going to come down the pipe, but I know things get very, very hard. If you look at the Horsemen of the Apocalypse riding, we're getting very close to them riding in full force and maybe underway already, which many people do think. So be prepared, folks. Again, find Jesus Christ. That's all I can say. You're a sinner. I'm a sinner. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. We need to accept in faith the death of Jesus Christ, who paid for our sins on that cross, to basically give us a free pass into heaven if we simply accept that free gift of salvation. It's easy to do, but people don't want to get off, don't want to get rid of their pride. They don't want to get off their high horse and bow the knee before Jesus Christ. Every person will bow the knee at some point, and I would suggest doing it now while you still can. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll leave it there, and we'll see you in the next video.